Good afternoon, dear audience. Warning: everything you hear and see in this video is the author's own opinion and his own judgment. The author does not call anyone to anything and has no purpose to offend anyone. Friends, I am in a hurry to dispel the fears of some subscribers and say that my channel is not political. I'm not going to discuss the political system in the country and make some big statements. But let me ask you one question. Whose hand is it that we have today in historical science and religious belief? Oh, maybe it's just people burning ancient manuscripts in America. Maybe the peasants decided to make the crusade. I think you know well who and whose hands did all this. If you know the truth, why do you think that today something has changed? The same processes of destruction of the true history, the truthful books and honest people continue today. And they're doing it again. Not by factory workers, not by farmers, not even by teachers in schools. It's all going on from the top. Leave this information for reflection. Think before you say that Aristotle has entered politics or that he supports a certain opposition figure. I stand for truth, for true information. If this information is important to the people, it is worth publishing. So today, I'm going to tell you about the very case where the truth that people need was tried to destroy and not let ordinary people know. The talk will be about the long-suffering Bible of coal brine. This ancient work has also other names, such as Coal Brine Script, Book of Coil, and Bronze Book. Briefly, what it is. The Egyptians themselves called this work simply Great Book. As you can understand, some people really did not like that someone has their own great book. It resulted, as you know, in the burning of the Library of Alexandria and the looting of ancient heritage. Separately, about the Alexandria Library. Today there is no clear opinion on who destroyed this world storehouse of knowledge and in what quantities. Wikipedia, meanwhile, claims that the main library was destroyed in 273 by the Emperor Aurelianus. Then, briefly and vaguely, speaks of a legend by which the powerful Christians destroyed the pagans, and with them, the library, but it's not certain. And then, again according to the legend, the Arabs completed the destruction. The Wikipedia continues. Almost all information about the contents and layout of the Alexandria Library is contained in scattered antique sources, which are strongly contradictory to each other. No text is known to have come directly from the library. Archaeologists are very hard at work in identifying its location. End of quotation. The question arises, did this library even exist? Maybe it is fiction? What if, just as Plato fantasized about Atlantis, so other ancient authors invented the mega-library? Funny, isn't it? Thus, I suggest that the first defenders of the Christian faith who hated the pagan gods, as did the messianic literature, and even more so the secret knowledge of the Egyptians, looted and destroyed not only the physical carriers, but also the memory of all this. That is, there is almost no information left. Why the Christians did it? A separate topic. At this point, I would like to give you a short excerpt of the text that will help you, dear viewers, understand the place of Christians during the reign of paganism in Egypt. Justin the Martyr, one of the first historians and apologists of Christianity, wrote, "When we Christians say that Jesus Christ, our teacher, was conceived without coitus, was crucified, died, rose again, and ascended to heaven, we affirm nothing different from what you already believe in by worshiping your gods, the sons of God Jupiter. He, Jesus, was born a virgin, accepted as you believe in Perseus." It is obvious that Justin and other early Christians understood how similar Christianity was to pagan religions and did not object to it. But Justus had his own explanation. As far as he knew, all these things were the devil's doing. The devil was so far-sighted that he appeared before the Nativity and confused all maps in the pagan world. Here is the simple and final statement. We are like you, we worship Jesus as Perseus, but we are from God, and you are from the devil. Ada, burn pagan manuscripts. It's brilliant. So the Bible of Cobain, also called the Great Book, was kept in the Library of Alexandria. Christians later became very angry, say in the book is only blasphemy and it has no right to exist. Accordingly, After the victory of the Christians, they tried to destroy all its copies. However, it is clear that someone who understood the importance of this work for humanity saved some copies. According to some information, copies of the book were taken by Phoenicians to Europe. There are reports that this book has also reached India. If we remember that the Great Book was written 1,500 years before the New Era, then it is possible to assume that its traces have survived all over the world. Modern sources claim that this helped the authors to restore the damaged text by supplementing the book with analogues from other sources. Thus, the Great Book is brought to Europe, where it has been kept secret for hundreds of years. The authors of the modern reprint claim that the book has been kept by a certain order, and the members of the order were subject to exceptionally high moral demands. So the guardians were almost all commoners, farmers, peasants, and so on. This was necessary to prevent the power-stricken guardian from using the book for his own selfish purposes or distorting its text, because until recently, the book had only a handwritten appearance. The name Bible of Copen appears again in 1184. Glastonberry Abbey, which was in England, had a huge number of rare ancient manuscripts. More zealous English Christians wanted to destroy this bastion of ancient manuscripts, so they took and set fire to the abbey in 1184, destroying the Library of Antiquities. Burning libraries reminds me of something. As you understand, in a fire the most valuable is saved, and it's no wonder that the custodians of the library rescued exactly the scroll they considered to be the most valuable. They saved manuscripts, later called the Coil Book. It should be noted that this scroll had an impressive volume, and probably because of this, it was not completely burned, but only partially damaged. The arsonists apparently considered their task accomplished, so until the 18th century, the book was kept in relative safety by the Celts, and they studied it. Otherwise, if the Christians had known about the saving of the manuscript, the hunt would have continued until the very end. But anyway, it was only in the 18th century that a part of the book was presented to the general public as Coila's Book. It should be noted that the modern version of the Bible of Copen consists of 11 parts. The first 6 parts are actually ancient Egyptian works, and 5 more are works by Celtic guardians who have studied Egyptian texts for several centuries and written about it. In the 17th century, some of the texts were written on thin sheets of bronze. This was later called the Bronze Book of Britain. The authors of the present version warn that the modern version of the Coburn Bible is a result of decipherment, evaluation, and restoration. That is, they do not claim that the modern text is an exact copy of the ancient one, especially since it was damaged by fire and time. However, the guardians and researchers have made every effort to preserve the essence and spiritual meaning. Therefore, take this paper as a guide to action is not worth. I think this is a worthy reservation. Each reader can determine the degree of truth and importance of this work for himself and others. Well, the introductory part is finished. Let's go directly to the book itself. When I started reading the main text, I immediately recognized the style of writing the first chapters. This is nothing but the analog of Hermetic texts by Hermes Trismegist. It's obvious, and I conclude that some of the text was actually written in ancient Egypt. Anyway, the key concepts are very similar. So, there are many articles on the internet about our research, but they're all written as if by copy. I will try to introduce you, dear viewers, with the most interesting fragments of Books of Coila, and in the process, comment on something. So from the very first lines, the Great Book answers the eternal question, what was the first one, chicken or egg? Read, on earth there is no true beginning, because everything here has an effect, and the final cause is elsewhere. For who of men can say that the first was a seed or a plant? But in fact it's not, because both the seed and the plant were preceded by something else, and this other thing was also preceded by something else. There are always ancestors, back to the beginning, and behind them is only God. This is how it was said in the Great Book of the Fiery Sons. Before the beginning there was only one, a consciousness of eternal, whose nature cannot be expressed in words. It was a single spirit, a generator of self that cannot be diminished, unknown, unknowable, thoughtful, lonely in deep, pregnant silence. The name which is pronounced by words cannot be the name of this great being who, remaining unnamed, is the beginning and end beyond time, beyond the reach of mortals. And we call him God in his simplicity. The one who preceded everything was alone in his strange abode of an undeveloped color, which remains inexhaustible, and not one eye could see it. The throbbing streams of light of eternal life in its storehouse had not yet been released. He knew himself alone. He was dispassionate, unable to manifest himself in nothingness, because everything in his being was of unexpressed potential. The great cycles of eternity have not yet been banished to be cast out as the infinite ages of existence in substance. They were to start with God and return back to him, ending in infinite diversity and expression. There was no earth yet, and there was no wind with the sky above it. High mountains were not raised, and there was no great river in its place. Everything was formless, still, calm, quiet, empty, and dark. No name was named, and no fate was foretold." End of quote. Well, here we see that the ancient text is quite consistent with most legends of the beginning of the world. The book then goes on to talk about how the universe was created, about the beginning of matter, and the end of chaos. Read it yourself. I wanted to focus on another eternal question. What is time? And the book, in my opinion, gives a very precise definition. Quote, "Time no longer lay in the bosom of God, because now there is change, and before everything remained unchanged, and change is time. Now in the universal womb there was warmth, matter, and life, and in it was a word that is law." End of quote. Thus, time has appeared at the moment of the beginning of movement, and it is a product of this movement. As long as planets move, stars are born and die, people, galaxies, time will exist. Perhaps that is why time goes on for so long when you sit and do nothing. Just wait. Time doesn't like to be stuck, apparently. Let's move on. Now, why people don't see God. Quote, "The instruction was given, let the smallest of things make the greatest. That is how the universe lives. It arose as a thickening of the thought of God, and when it did, it obscured him from all that was within. From now on, God was hidden, because he always remained dimly reflected in his creation. He became veiled from all that was happening to him. The creation does not explain itself according to the law. It cannot do so. His secrets must be revealed by the Creator." End of quote. As has been said many times, the main goal of man on earth is to discover the Creator, to know the secrets, and return to his original bestless form. It is the triumph of the spirit of man over flesh and matter that is constantly mentioned in the book. We are then told about the creation of life on earth. In my own words, first, it was known from ancient times that the earth was completely covered with water at the beginning, and it seems that the sun was created later than the earth. Then the waters of the earth were gathered together, and the earth, having risen unsteadily from under the water, became dry. The sun dried up the earth, and it became solid. Then the spirit of life comes to the scene, coming from the great heavenly womb. The following passage of the text is not quite clear, but it seems that the Spirit appeared in the form of something material, which caused some changes on the earth, formation of mountains, changes of landscape. But thanks to the sun, this object was deactivated and transferred to the sister of the sun. As we know, the sister or brother of the sun is actually the moon. The text says that the Spirit was punished, calmed, and walked in silence above the waters of the earth, and the earth was moved by it. Quote below, "The mud eggs of life potential formed in swamps at the junction of land and water. The sun gave vivifying warmth, and life crawled on the ground. The metals are hidden in its stones, the precious stones in the soil. Gold and silver were scattered and hidden. There was copper for tools, and wood for construction, and swamp from the reeds, and stones for any purpose. All this was prepared. Everything was ready. And now the earth awaited the coming of man. The dust of the earth produced a man, and the dark water surrounded a woman, and they united and multiplied. The earth was no longer virgin, but the spirit of life grew old and departed. The earth remained clothed in green mantle, its face covered with earth. End of quote. In principle, the whole book says that life on earth was not an accident, that all things were created especially for man. Have you ever wondered why plants can cure diseases? Why can any earthly substance be made useful to man? The book answers these questions by telling us about the purpose of these creations of nature for man. All this was designed to use the world around him, but for his own creation, not for his own pleasure. It is further explained that the spirit flying above the earth saw all its splendor, but unfortunately could not taste the fruits of the earth, because he had no body, neither hands nor eyes. Thus the spirit descended into the first human body, created from water and earth matter. However, the first men could only eat and multiply without being able to know either the heavens or their creator. These semi-animals, according to Indian legends, were the first human beings who could not know the highest secrets of existence. The descendants of these first people are supposed to be monkeys, and we keep reading, quote, "Behold, the great day has come when the Spirit which is God hath joined with the beast which is the earth. Then the earth was in agony, and the mountains were swinging back and forth, and the seas were rising up and down. The earth moaned and screamed from the wind, it cried in rivers and its storms. Thus was born a man, born of shocks and discord. He came as a drab and noisy descendant of the lost earth. Everything was in disarray. In the hot wastelands, snow fell, and the ice-covered fertile plains, forests turned into seas. Where it was once hot, it is now cold, and where there has never been rain, there are now floods. And so came out a man, a child of disaster, heir to creative struggle, the battlefield of extremes. The earth nurtured a man with careful attachment, and she cherished him in the depths of her body. Then, when he had grown up enough to walk in the righteousness of God, she took him and raised him above all other creatures. She led him even into the presence of God and put him on the great altar. And the man, not yet complete with earthly constraints, was an incomplete, clumsy, and uneducated being, but he was proudly presented to the Creator. The earth gave birth to him, and his firstborn was man, son of the earth, grandson of God, heir to sorrow and disciple of suffering. Then from the incomprehensible heights and behind the impenetrable veil, God came down to the altar and breathed into man the breath of eternal life. In his sleeping body, God has implanted a fragment of himself, soul and spark of divinity. And the mortal man became heir to God and immortality. Henceforth he was to rule over the earthly possession of God, but also he was to unravel the cycles of eternity. His destiny was to be eternal search and aspiration. End of quote. This is how the ancient treaty confirms some geological hypotheses about mass extinction and climate change when new species appear. The next part is about what I already told in my video called The Main Secret of the Gods. Read, quote, "Man was asleep, but God opened in him a great eye, and the man saw a vision of glory beyond all measure. He heard the voice of God saying, 'O man, in your hand is now the tablet of your inheritance, and my seal on it. Know that whatever you desire in your heart can be yours, but first you must learn to appreciate it. Here is a land filled with useful things. They are prepared for your hand for some purpose, but your task is to find them and learn how to use.' Then God laid his hand on man, saying, 'Now you are like me, except that you sleep there in matter, in the realm of illusion, and I live here in freedom, reality, and truth. It is not for me to come to you, but for you to turn to me.' The man saw a vision of glory, even in the realm of heavenly glory. Unlimited wisdom filled his heart, and he saw beauty in perfection, the ultimatum of truth and justice that was revealed before him. He became one with the deep world, the world of eternity, and learned the value of eternal joy. The ages of time have rolled like a scroll before his eyes, and he has seen written on it all that was to happen. The great heavenly vaults opened to him, and he saw the everlasting fire of an irresistible force that was seeking him. He felt the excitement of unutterable love inside him. His thoughts filled with boundless greatness. His duty was unhindered in all spheres of existence. He was even God himself at that time, and he knew the secret of the 7 spheres and the 3 spheres. Then God took off his hand from the man, and the man was left alone. The great vision was gone, and he awoke with only a vague and elusive memory left, no more than a shadow of sleep. But deep within his sleeping soul, there was a spark of memory, and this caused a restless desire in the man, because he did not know the truth. From now on, the man was destined to wander around, looking for something he felt, that he knew but could not see, something that constantly eluded him, constantly pushed him, and always tormented him. Deep within, the man knew that there was something more than himself, that he had always been with him and was a part of him, impelling him to great deeds, great thoughts, and great aspirations. It was something outside of him, barely perceived and never found, and something that told him the glow on the horizon dimly reflected the hidden glory behind him. And so, the man awoke. The visions of revelation had disappeared, and only the dark reality of the unbridled expanse of the earth surrounded him. But when he stood up and stepped on the bosom of his Mother Earth, he was not frightened by the great forces that surrounded him and the magnitude of the task ahead. In his heart, he knew that the keys of fate were not on earth. He went out nobly, gladly accepting the challenge. End of quote. The next chapter begins with the most interesting quote. Since ancient times, there is knowledge that there was not one creation, but 2, creation and recreation. The sage knows that once the earth was completely destroyed and then reborn on the second wheel of creation. During the great destruction of the earth, God made a dragon from heaven come and take it. Let me finish the first part of the video and apologize for stopping at the most interesting place. In the second part, everything will be interesting. Try not to delay her release. If you like this video, do not go out and post it on social networks. I am extremely grateful to the people who support my channel financially. Thank you, dear viewers. See you again on the channel Aristotle.